Now in this video I'm going to make a cookie clicker game essentially in HTML using JavaScript, and I normally use the program Brackets. Now Brackets has been updated. The new version of Brackets is now called Phoenix Code. Alright, so I'm going to use this Phoenix Code and I'm going to see how I go creating it with Phoenix Code. Apparently it's exactly the same, it's just got a few updated features. So here I am, I've downloaded it off the internet, it's free, it's the new version of Brackets, and I'm just going to start with let's go default program. Okay, now it looks laid out pretty much exactly the same as the way that my past was. There's default project already here. I want to make a new project, so can I start typing in here? No, file, new file. Here we go. So it's saving it into its default project folder. So that's interesting that's doing that, but that's where it's going to be. Now we're going to make a cookie clicker program. Now we started this in the last video, last JavaScript video. We started some of this, but I'm going to start from scratch so that you guys can see everything that I'm doing. Right. So let's go File, Save As. Oh, it is a little bit different. The interface is a little bit different. Right. File, Save As. I'm going to call it Cookie. Now I'm going to start with it being called Cookie, but I am actually going to change this later to not a cookie program because cookie's already, it's already out there. I want to make mine a little bit different. Don't want to break copyright or any of that sort of stuff. So I'm going to call it cookie.html. Now I'm going to start with my doc type, and I'm going to close that bracket. All right, so the colors are a little bit different. Hopefully it fills in. Yes, it does. Even when I make the same mistake I always make, HTML. And then I'm going to put in my head. I might put in some, I'm not sure if I'm going to use this. No, yeah, let's put a title in here. Title in there. Yep, let's do that. Let's put in my body. Okay, now the first thing I notice is that it's not very well zoomed in, right? So I'm just going to try and zoom in a little bit, especially for the purpose of the video. I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing, right? So I'm just zoomed in a little bit there, minimizing these things down. It's got an error here already. I don't care what that is. Doc type. Yeah, that's correct. That's what I wanted to be. Oh, I didn't put doc type HTML. Okay, so maybe that's why it gave me a little error. HTML, that's correct, that's correct. That closed. I don't know why there's an error here. What's this saying? Missing the language. Now, I'm not going to put the language in. I don't want to do that. I don't care about that. Right, so let's go through, and we've started our body here, which is great. And we're going to be using some JavaScript. So let's put in some script in here. Okay, and what we'll do is I'll start with the most simple, just a clicker program. Then we'll add clicker with a timer, and then we'll add clicker with a timer and a score, and then we'll add clicker with a timer and a score, and the highest score person, and all those sorts of things. So we can do lots of different things in here. I'll also put a heading in here, and I'll call it my H1 heading, and I'm just going to call it click counter game. Good. Okay, so now I've got the heading in here. I want to start doing, in fact, let's put in our button so that we can actually click it, and let's put in how many clicks that we're going to have. Now, again, if you watched this earlier video, this is exactly the same as what I did last time. I'm going to start with a paragraph. I'm going to write the word clicks, and colon. This is going to say how many clicks I have actually done. I put in a span, and I'm going to give that an ID, and the ID is going to be equal to the count, which is going to be count how many clicks are actually there. Be good if I did the inverted commas correct. Right, so there's a count. Close that, and let's start the count at 0. Close my span, close this. Now, for those who didn't watch the other video, what I'm saying in here is, within the body of my HTML, we're going to have the word clicks, right? So you'll see the word clicks, and it'll have the number 0 next to it. Now, I've given that an ID, that little span section there, that section where the number lives, I've given that an ID of count. And then in our JavaScript later, what we're going to do is we're going to update this count. So you'll see the count goes up every time the person clicks a button, right? It makes sense, right? Right, now we're going to put a button in. Okay, and our button, we're going to put on click. Let's run a function, and the function we're going to run, we'll call it add click. Right, so we're going to add a click, and we better say where we're going to click. So say click here. Right, so it's going to click there. and that's the end of my button. So that's the actual button that'll be on the screen. And when the button is clicked, it runs this function called add click. And the function is going to be in our script, right? So I'm going to put that inside my script down here. I don't like this pink X at the top of it. It just annoys me so much. So let's satisfy it and put language equals English. Right, so that should have satisfied that, so I get rid of that little pink X. Now I know that annoys other people, so it annoys me too. So, right, now let's create a variable. Let's let clicks equal 0. So we're starting off with our simple variable. It's going to be our clicks. It's going to equal 0, and then we're going to create our function. And this, again, for those people who have been doing Python with me in class, it's nearly the same as creating a function in Python. Instead of having def and then the name of this, we're putting the word function, right? So we're creating a function in here, and we're going to say clicks equals clicks plus 1. So when the function is run, the current variable 0 clicks is going to look at itself and say, what is it currently at? And it's going to add one more to that, right? You can't just do clicks equals plus 1, because then clicks will always be just 1, right? It's got to say, what is it currently? And then add 1 to what it currently is, okay? So clicks equals clicks plus 1. And then we're going to say, go to the document and get element by ID. So we're going to go and get the element by ID, and the ID we're going to look for is count, right? So we're going to put brackets, inverted commas, count. Okay, and we want to change the text in there. So we want to say text content. Let's change that text content to equal what our new clicks is, right? So whatever the variable clicks currently is, that's what's going to display on the screen here instead of a 0. All right, so that should be it. That should be our program. It should be perfect. So every time I click, the number of clicks should increase. I should have a heading on the page. It should be perfect, right? So let's go File. Oops, not there. Let's go File, Save here. Save file. It's just a little bit different, this interface. I don't love it up here. I like working off the top bar up here, but that's okay. Now let's see if we can click this and it's going to work. There we go. It's previewing for me in this section, which is a little bit better than the other way. It used to open up a window and it would open up a browser, and then I'd do it in the browser. So that's actually quite good. I'm quite happy that works. Right, there's my heading. It's got a heading up here. My title. Oh, I haven't put a title in, so the title's got to be cookie counter. All right, and then let's refresh this and see if I get it. Oh, it doesn't really show it anyway, but okay. And let's start clicking. Let's click this button, click, 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 and nothing is happening. So I've made a little mistake in here somewhere in my code. So let's go and work it out. Okay, let's have a quick look again here. Docutype language, English, head, cookie counter, title closes, head, body, click counter, clicks is correct, count is correct. You notice I pay a lot of attention to these things because these are the variables or the things that link from one to another. So if you make a mistake in here, they're not going to work. But add click is exactly the same as add click, and count is exactly the same as count. On click is spelled correctly. Let's click, that's correct. Function add click. Document. ENT, if I could spell it would be fantastic. Document. Right, let's make sure we save that. So let's go File, Save File. Let's try it now. I'll refresh my page. Edit mode. If I click, here we go. Instead of being on edit mode, if I click preview mode here, now I'm previewing my page. And it works. Every time I click, my number goes up, right? So there's my first click counter. Now, if you can imagine from here, we want to make it so that it's not just an infinite amount of clicks. You want to have some sort of time limit or some sort of way to manage how many clicks you can get done during this time, right? So we're going to edit this code. So the first thing I would do is I would save that version, and I would call that, I've called it cookie.html. So now we can make a second version, right? So maybe I go File, Save As. I could save it in the same location, and this time I could call it cookie v2, so it means version 2 for me, and I'm going to hit save in here. So now I'm not going to work on my first version. I know that works. I'm going to work on my second version, v2. That's what I'm going to work on. I'm going to make some changes in here based on my second version. Now the changes that I want to make in here is I want to add some time. Okay, so let's think about how I'm going to add some time. Well, the first thing is I need to show the time on the screen. So like this paragraph here, I'm going to want to show time. Okay, so maybe I'll put the time. When you're looking at it, do you want to see the time on top and the clicks underneath, or the clicks on top and the time? That doesn't really matter. All right, I'm just going to put it here, Command V, right? And so instead of saying clicks, I'm going to change this one to say time. So this is another paragraph. It's going to show the time. I'm going to change the ID, and the ID this time is going to become time. And let's start with, I don't know, 10 seconds, okay? So now I've got two things that are going to display on my screen. I wonder if in edit mode I can now see that. There we go. We're going to have the time up there, and we're going to have the clicks there. This is really good. This little edit mode is quite good, right? So now I can see that that's the second thing that I'm going to display on my screen. Okay, now I better have something happen, a button to say start the game. So if I've got a button that counts my amount of clicks, I'm going to have a button that says start the game, right? So let's go Command C, and let's put the button, I don't know, let's put the button underneath this time, just to be different. And this one we're going to say, we're going to make a different function in here, and we're going to call this one start game. Okay, and instead of saying click here, let's put start game. Okay, so now I'm going to have two buttons. Let's preview it and have a look. Here's my start game. So what I'll end up doing is I'll click that start game, and then I'll start clicking here crazy in a crazy amount of time, right? And eventually what we're going to do is get rid of this click here button, and we'll put like a cookie, and you click the cookie, and then the cookie starts the amount of times I've clicked within 10 seconds, I suppose. That's how it's going to be. So that's pretty good. I like that as a starting point. Right, now we've got to do actually the script section. The script section is going to need a few more variables. Now the first one we're going to need, obviously same as clicks, we're going to need one called time. In fact, let's call this time left, how much time is left. And we're going to equal to 10 seconds, because that's what we said we're going to start with, is our 10 seconds, time left. And we're going to need something to see if the game is still active. So we're going to have some sort of loop in here where while there is time left, the game keeps running, but after the time is run out, the game stops running. So like a true false or a Boolean variable in here. Let's game running equal false. All right, so at the moment we're going to say, is the game running? That's false, it's not running. When they click start game, that'll become true, and then when the timer runs out, it'll become false again. So that's kind of the concept behind there. Now, we need to modify our add click. Do we modify our add click? Yes, we do. And I just kind of talked about it just then. While the game is running, we want to be able to do these things, but when the game finished running, then we don't want to do these things. So let's put in an if statement inside here. Let's put in if game running. So that means, what that means actually in I suppose a better way to write that is if game running equals true, right? So if this is true, then you can do the clicks. You can count all of the clicks here that are going to be in the game, right? Now, don't forget these little things that I'm doing. I just drew my double curly brackets there and I moved it. I cut one and I pasted it down here, right? Because all of this stuff here is inside this if statement, right? So, in fact, visually it would be better if I did that so that you can see here my function starts. If the game's running, then I'm going to do all of the clicks and those sorts of things, okay? So that's the way that's going to be. And this function now is only going to work. The clicks are only going to work if the game is running, okay? But we still haven't addressed this one, this start game, and we haven't said, how do we get the game running? How do we actually make the game running? So we need this start game function. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to create my new function down here, and I'm going to call it start game. I'm going to put in my curly brackets, and I'm just going to move my screen up a little bit here so I can see this space that we've got here. And when the game first starts, I want clicks to be 0, time left to be 10, and I want game running to change to be true. So I'm going to copy those three from my script. I'm going to paste them inside this function, because when the function starts, I want the score to be 0 again. I want the timer to be starting at 10 again. But this time, if the game starts, I want the game to be true. I want to say, yes, the game is true. And then when that says true, then this function can start running. So I kind of need that to be true first, right? Now, what do I want to happen while that's going on? I want the screen to update the time, and I want the screen to update the count. So let's do this. Let's copy that line there, because that will go to my document. It'll find those elements and it'll update those two elements, right? So let's paste that there twice. Oops, what happened then? Shift return. Here, paste. Oh, not even shift return, that's why. Paste there. Right, now I want to make some changes here. I want the count to... Well, I do want the count to update, and I do want it to update the clicks on the screen, so I'm not going to change that one. But I also want the time to update, and I want that to update based on time left. Okay, so that's going to work. That'll work actually. So I'll explain this little section of code. And this is what I normally do. I kind of mentally write this code out on the screen, and then I talk about how it works. So when we look at our screen, here's our screen. When you click this start game, it starts this function down here, right? So this function isn't even getting used yet. We're just clicking the start game function. And the start game function will set our variable to 0, let our timer be at 10, and it says, is the game running? True, the game is running. And what it does, while the game is running, it's going to update the count and it's going to update the time. So this time here will update, and these clicks will update here. Then let's say the user starts to click here. And as soon as they start to click here, it goes to this function here, which is this add click function. And it says, if the game is running, which now it is because it's true, we can start counting our clicks. Clicks equals clicks plus 1, update clicks, right? So make sure that you're updating clicks every single time that you click the button, right? So that means while that game is running. Now, we need to somehow have the timer slow down, right? So somehow in there, we need the timer to actually remove one of this time left. We need to slow that down every single time, right? So we don't want it to be one click means one time is gone off our timer, because that would mean the maximum score you get is 10. And people can click the clicker quicker than 1 per second, right? So we need to actually make a variable called timer. So let's go down here and let's do this. Do I do this inside or outside that function? I need to do this actually inside that function. So I shouldn't have pressed that return there. I'm going to do this inside this function in here. Let's go let timer equal, and what we're going to do is we're going to set an interval, right? So we're going to call this function that sets an interval, and we're going to call an empty function, right? We don't need the function to do anything except to reduce the time in the timer, okay? So this is a funny thing that sometimes you do in JavaScript is you're calling a function in here, but you're not putting any arguments in and you're not putting any name in, because you don't really need to name this. You're never going to call this function. You're never actually going to individually call it. It's already happening within the bounds of this start game function. So it doesn't need its own name. You don't need to have anything in here called the function. Right, so let's see what's going to happen inside here. Oh, this is interesting. These grey lines are telling me where the indents should be. Not that the indents matter, but let's have a look. Right, so we're going to do time left equals time left minus 1. So that's going to reduce our time on our timer. And it's going to be done because of this set interval, right? So it's going to reduce the time based on the interval of the counting down 1 second at a time, right? So that's going to work out. So it reduces every 1 second that passes. this time equals time minus 1, one of those will occur, right? Then 1 second will happen and another one of those will occur, right? Now, then we're going to want to update the time. So let's go to document element update time left. So we want to say, okay, we've reduced the time. So we want to show that we've reduced the time. So we've done that. And then we want to somehow say that if the time left gets to 0, let's do that a little bit differently. Let's put that in. I want to get rid of this so you can see the whole code, right? So let's go to here and let's say, let's say in here, before I close this, so it's part of this little function in here, I actually want to say in here, I want to say if in brackets time left is exactly equal to in all ways, not just in Python, you know, we use 2 equals to say exactly equal to. In this one, you say it is exactly equal to in all ways, in structure, in format, in size, in everything. If it's exactly equal to in all ways, that's what the 3 equal signs mean. You could use 2, but it's less accurate. 3 is more accurate, right? If that works, we're going to clear the interval, which is essentially our timer. We're going to clear that. We're going to say, all right, we're going to clear the timer. And what else are we going to say? We're going to say that the game is now not running. So it's back to false. And we're going to say some sort of alert on the screen to say, actually on this semicolon there. Go back on this semicolon there. Okay, semicolon there. We need to have an alert, so let's put alert on the screen. So this is something. This is like a little pop-up window that'll come up on your screen. It'll say game over, exclamation mark, and then let's say how many score they got. Let's say game over. You got space, close inverted commas. We're going to concatenate with the clicks. So in other words, we're joining the clicks. We're going to join them to say this is how many clicks you got. Clicks, that'll do. You game over. You got blah 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 clicks. Okay. Now the only thing we haven't really done is we haven't told this set interval the time. We haven't said 1 second is 1 second, or we've hinted at it by saying, okay, the time is going to go down by 1 every time the interval is done. But we haven't actually said what the interval is going to be. What is the actual interval? What is the time in between taking 1 away each time, right? So we really need to do that. So where we do that is where this bracket, which is there, see that's where this bracket opens, and this is where that bracket closes. We need to put in a comma, and we need to put in 1,000 milliseconds. 1,000 milliseconds essentially is 1 second, right? So we need to put in 1,000 milliseconds and say that's how it's going to work. Now, I've made a tiny little mistake here, I think. If I just have a quick look, I've put in function, and then I close that bracket. But I don't want to close that bracket. I'll keep that bracket open because it needs to close down here, because this set interval essentially is taking that argument of 1,000 milliseconds. Okay, so I needed to make sure I didn't double close the bracket there. I need to close it down here and say that it's 1,000 milliseconds. Okay, so that's going to be that section, and I think that's about it. I think if I just close that out, close my script, make sure that's right. I think that's all correct. I'm just going to save this file, save. And this is why I use cookie version 1 and then cookie version 2, because this has got a lot more content in it in terms of a lot more things that I've put into the program. I can go back and look at, all right, this was my starting point, a simple button click. Now I've got 2 buttons that I can click and a timer that runs down, okay? So I can see that. So let's have a quick look. Let's see if it works. Change this to, yeah, it's on preview mode, good. Now if I click start game and then I start clicking, right, so my clickers are not working. Okay. Oh, my clickers are not working. My timer's working, but my clicker display is not working. So I've probably had a little typo. Alert, you got 0 clicks, and the zeros joined there too, which I don't like either. So let's make a few little changes in here and work out what we've done wrong here. Let's put a space in there to get rid of that 2 words joined together. Let's check out our count, because the count was what didn't show up. So clicks equals clicks plus 1 while that's running, and we've got the word count there. Okay, so that should be right. Now down here, you're going to get the count and you're going to show the count. Okay, so I always say that having errors in your code is not bad because you learn from them. So this is probably a good opportunity for you to see my mindset, I suppose, as I go down through this file and work out what the problem is. Now, I know that all of that is going to be correct because our cookie page, it was all correct. So if I go to here, all I've really done is add a new function here for a start game and a new line here for the time, right? But none of those two things are actual functionality. They're just things that display on the screen. So I know that that section is correct. So it must be something in my script. Now, my first thought is this clicks here is a 0, and then I'm saying down here within the function, set clicks to 0. So am I saying make this clicks equal 0, but then also make it equal 0 here, and I'm not updating this clicks, I might be updating this clicks. But I don't want that. The problem is, here's my main variables here, and then I know what I've done. Okay, so here's my main variables here, and then I've recreated exactly the same variables here. But I don't need to recreate them. These are global variables. So all I need to do is change them. So I don't need to take the word let out of those three because I'm not creating new variables here. I'm editing the variables that are currently available. So this one here that says let clicks, that creates a variable called clicks and it puts 0 into that. This creates a variable called time left and puts 10 into it. This creates a variable called game running and makes it false. Now when I run this function, I don't want to recreate those variables. I want to edit the global variables, right? So I don't need that let. Let's just edit what's already there. Right, I think that's it, right? So let's save that file, save file. Let's go to our clicker here. Let's click start game, and there we go. My clicks are running and my timer's running down. So that's really great. And you can see I can get way more than 10 clicks in 10 seconds, right? I can get 62 clicks in 10 seconds. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. And it says alert, game over, you got 62 clicks. Fantastic, right? 62 clicks. But here's the problem. If I'm playing this with my friend online, how do I show off and say, oh, look, I got 62 clicks, I'm better than you? So we need to somehow keep that score. We want to somehow record the highest score. And we don't even need to record everyone's score. We could record just the highest score, whoever gets the highest score. And in fact, if we record the highest score with the user's name, then they'll have like bragging rights. They'll be able to say, haha, look, my name's on top, and then everyone will try and beat it, right? So that's what we could do next. Okay, so we've done the heavy lifting of this program at the moment. So what we want to do really now is just little things to make it better. But the main program, the way it works, the clicking and counting the clicks, it's done, right? So we're going to do a save as here. We're going to file save as. And when I do a save as, I'm going to save this as version 3. Because version 3 is now going to have a high score and who's the top player and those sorts of things. So in fact, what I could have done is save this as simple cookie with timer, and then version 3 would be cookie with timer and high score and top player and that sort of thing. Now, what I want to do is I want to add 2 more things under here. I want to add the top score and the top player, right? So essentially, I need 2 more of these like paragraph tabs. So I'm just going to copy those 2. And I'm going to move down a few lines, give myself a bit of space. I'm just going to paste them. Now, the first one I'm going to put in is what's going to be the high score. Okay, so the current high score. And we'll set the current high score obviously to 0 because no one's had a higher score at the moment. And we'll give it an ID of, guess what, high score. Right, so that's first one. That's going to have a little thing on the screen that says high score, current high score is 0. Now we want to say who got that high score, so we're going to say the top player. Okay, and the top player, it's going to have their name, and we'll call it, well, we might as well call it high name. So highest name, and let's put nobody. Okay, so there's nobody's got the highest score at the moment, right? So now let's have a quick look at that high. Let's make that high with a capital N, just to stay with the same sort of conventions of the way I've been writing it. If we have a quick preview of this now, here's we're going to have the time, the amount of clicks you've done, the current high score, and then the who is the highest score, who's that person that's the highest score so far. Now, you might not want that sort of before you do the clicks and the start game and that. So what we could do is actually cut that and just go Command X, and we'll put it down under the buttons if we want to do it under the buttons. We might even put a break in as well, right? So see now my high score, and that's down here. And if I put a break in here, it might actually look a little bit better. I'm sort of pushing things down a little bit. In fact, let's do it 2 lines there. There we go. Let's do 3. So now the high score, and that's going to be a little bit lower on my page, right? And I can still do the clicks and the timer and those. They're all close together, which is kind of good. It's grouped better. Right, so that's it. I've got 2 things that I'm going to have on the screen there. So that's pretty simple. Now, obviously, I need to have some more global variables in here. And the global variables that I'm going to put in are obviously going to be the same concept, right? So we need to have a let high score, and we'll make that equal to 0, colon, right? And oops, semicolon. And then we're going to go let, and I called it high name, and that's going to equal to, inverted commas, nobody. Now, I know this seems a bit silly. You've already written up here, high name is nobody and high score is 0. This is just what displays on the screen. To actually have it as a working, something that can be manipulated and changed, it needs to be in a variable, right? So that's why we've got them up here to display to people, but down here to make sure that they're actually we can manipulate them, right? So that's what we've done there. Right, now the next bit we have to do is really, really simple. Toward the end of our game, after the timer finishes, all we need to do is see if the score the person got is the new highest score. That's all. And is it bigger than 0? So if they get bigger than 0, it's going to save it as the highest score, and then they can put their name in, right? So I mean, that kind of makes sense to me. So let's have, in fact, did we put their name in? That's a good question. Maybe I should put their name in to start with, right at the very start of the game. Okay, let me think about how we do that. Yeah, let's put their name in as well. Let's put their name in somewhere, because otherwise, how do we know who the highest score player is going to be? So maybe before we start in here, we want to, or at the start of the game. Where's the start of my game section? Start game here. So where we start the game here, let's create a new variable in here. Let's call it let, what are we going to call it? Let enter your name. No, let player name. Let player name, whoops, equal, we want a prompt on the screen. And the prompt, we want it to say, enter your name. Enter your name. Okay, so lucky I remembered that, right? Because we can't really put in what the person's name is if we haven't actually got their name, right? So once this function starts, it's going to start doing the start game function. It's going to come up with a prompt on the screen. Once you've clicked the start button, it's going to come up with a prompt on the screen saying enter your name, right? And so then everything will start going once we enter the name, all right? So I think that makes a little bit of sense if we do that there. Right, so now let's get to what I was trying to say about when the game ends. Instead of here giving an alert saying game over, let's change that and let's put in an if statement before that, right? And you'll understand as I do this. And again, this is embedded inside the actual game running the timer sort of function. This is inside there. So let's go. If clicks is bigger than the current high score. So that makes sense. If the new clicks variable is bigger than the current high score, then we're going to do something. And what we're going to do, we're going to say high score. High score is now going to be equal to the clicks, all right, because it's the new high score. And we're going to say high name is going to have to be equal to the name that we just got entered. So the player name, capital N. So it's going to be entered to equal to the player name. Now we want to update those on the screen. Same as we do these updates here, we want to actually update the highest score and the player name. So I'm going to copy these two elements here. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to paste them in here. And remember, this time what we're going to do is we're going to say, this time we want to change, what do we call them? We call them high score and high name. So we want to change high score. And we want to change high name. Name. And what are we going to put into here? We're going to put these two new variables in here called high score and high name. Okay, so that looks pretty right to me. That's going to do the right thing. And then, okay, let's put an alert in there as well. So let's copy this alert and let's say, if they got the highest score, let's say new high score. Okay, you got the new high score, and then let's make this more personal. Let's put in a plus in here, and we're going to concatenate in the user's name. Player name plus such and such. So whatever the player's name is, got however many clicks. That's great. So let's just put a space there. New high score, space, player name got 500 clicks. Right, now let's actually make this even different as well. Close that bracket, so that closes that bracket, and then let's put in an else in here with curly brackets. Otherwise, let's say this. So if they get the highest score, it's going to say new high score, player name got such amount of clicks. But if they don't get the highest score, then it's just going to say game over, you got however many clicks, right? So either way, they get an alert message. One of them could be, well done, you're the new high person, or you're not the new high person. So that's what that should be about it. And that's what I meant when I said it's not really a huge change here. All we're doing is putting in a simple if-else statement in here, that if they got the highest score, we give them the highest score. If they didn't, then they get the same thing. We needed to remember to input the user's name at the start, and we needed to make sure that we're displaying the high score on that. So let's have a look at the page here really quickly. Right, so if I click start, I don't want to be in edit mode, I want to be in preview mode. If I hit start game, no, it didn't work. So we've got a little error here, which again, I always say to you, this is good. Let's work out what the error is. Okay, let's have a look and see if we can find these errors. I'll just hide this thing for a second so that we can go through and find it. Now, I didn't change many things, so let's just look at what I've changed. High score, top player, high name. Okay, we go down here. High score, high name. They're both spelled correctly. Nobody, colons are correct. Maybe I could put a semicolon at the end of that. I don't think that's a major issue. Let's go down here further. What else did I change? I didn't change that. I didn't change that. Let player name, that's okay, that looks all right. If clicks equals, capital S. High score, need to make sure I get that one correct, so that's not going to work. High score equals clicks. High name should be high name. So there's two typos I've found. So that's two mistakes. What else? Document, get element by, that's high name. New score, player name, got clicks. Oh, wait a minute. Didn't close that bracket. Close that bracket. And yeah, that should have a semicolon at the end as well. Right, so I found 3 mistakes. Game over, you get that click, open bracket, close bracket. Okay, so you can see I found 3 mistakes there. A couple of typing mistakes, and I missed a bracket off the end, so maybe that was it. Let's save this file. File, save, and we go to preview, and we go start game, and window problem, API is not available in embedded live preview. Okay, so Phoenix can't run this because I've asked it to have a pop-up window that says enter your name, right? So Phoenix didn't like that. So I'm going to run this separately. So I'm just going to go to the folder where all this information is saved, which normally is in your documents on your computer. So here is my documents folder. Here is my Phoenix code. There's the default project. Here's the version. So I'm just going to run that here, double click it. So there's my game. So it looks exactly the same as this. I'm just running it in Safari instead. Now if I click start game, enter your code. And you see, look, the timer's not running yet. So it's letting me enter my name in here. This is my pop-up window. So if I type Nick and then I hit OK, now the timer's started. So I'm just going to click as much as I can for the first 10 seconds. I'm doing this on my touchpad, so let's see how quickly I can get. So I got 65. New high score, Nick got 65 clicks. Now when I hit OK here, this high score should change to 65 and this should change to Nick. So let's go close, and it did. Now let's start the game again, and this time let's play as someone different. Let's play as John and hit OK, and John's a bit slow, right? So John's not going to beat the top score. He's going a bit slow. He's barely going to beat 10. And let's see if it says new high score, if it says the else statement. Game over, you got 18 clicks. That's it. So that's it. There's our clicker game so far. At this stage, I'm really happy with that. It keeps the high score. It remembers this. Now, it only remembers this while you're on the page. We haven't attached it to a back-end database or any of that sort of stuff. It's just going to remember it while we're on this JavaScript page. As soon as you click off it, it'll go back to 0. It won't remember these. We can remedy that. If we get to version 4 or 5, we might be able to fix that. The next thing I want to do is I want to add a cookie. So instead of clicking this click here button, we're going to add a cookie to click there. And in fact, we might change it from a cookie to something different just to be a bit unique. Okay, so our game is nearly done, except we want to add, instead of this click here button, we want to actually add a cookie, like a cookie. In fact, I want to change it to something else, but let's start with just adding a cookie in here, okay? So I'm just going to minimize this little screen here, and then let's make a new version. Let's make version 4, so we'll go File, Save As, and we'll call this version 4, so this is going to be our latest version. And we do a save there. So now I'm working on version 4. And I can see here, cookie 2, cookie 3, cookie version 4. So this is my version 4. Now, the first thing we want to do is we want to add a cookie. Now, the cookie is going to be an image. So you need to go and source an image. You need to go and find an image. So you might go onto Safari and you might say cookie with white background. Okay, and you find an image of a cookie with a white background. There we go. That looks pretty good. Let's have a look. Maybe that one. I like that one. That looks like a pretty good cookie, or that one. You know, it doesn't really matter. And you need to save that image, right? Now, this is how I would do it. I would right-click on the image, and I would say Open Image in a new tab. And that way, it opens just the image. It doesn't open anything else. Just opens the image. I would then right-click on that again, and I would say Save Image As. And when you do Save Image As, I'm going to save it to my desktop, and I'm going to call it Cookie, and I'm going to hit Save. Now, when it comes up on your desktop, it's going to have an extension. So if I just grab this and drag it over here, you can see it says cookie.jpg. Now, we don't want a JPG. We want to have a PNG. So then what I would do is I would go online here, and I'd go back to Google, and I'd say convert JPG to PNG, right? And so some sort of online converter, one of these will work. Let's just try this one, JPG to PNG. Now, I select the file. It's on my desktop. It's called cookie JPG. I go upload, and so there it's uploaded, and now I say convert. And so it should convert that to a PNG. I click Save All, allow it to download, and hopefully that's downloaded to my computer. There it is, cookie.png. So that's downloaded. Now, this is a key thing. This is a very important thing. That image has to be saved in the same folder as where these files are. Now, we know they're saved in a default folder. So, for example, if I go into my computer, if I go into Documents, Phoenix has its code in Documents, Phoenix code, and here's my default project and here's my files. Now I'm going to open a second window and I'm going to go to my downloads and I'm going to get that cookie PNG and I'm going to save it into that default folder. So now I know for a fact that PNG is right there, it's in my file, it's going to work. It's next to my HTML files. So that was it. That was pretty quick to get a cookie. So that's the first thing to get the image. Now let's get to the important part, which is the code. And you can use an image of anything, right? Now I've got one that I made earlier, which I'll show you at the end and we'll change it a little bit. But essentially you can use an image of anything. Now let's get to the program. We have here a button, and this button says, I'm just going to put some gaps in between it. There we go. This button here has on click, do the add click function. Well, I don't want the function to change. The function is correct. I know my program works. Version 4, I know it all works, right? So what I want to do is I just want to add an image in there instead of a button. So to do an image, we do img, right? And we're going to give this an ID, and the ID is going to be, the ID is going to be cookie. Okay, and the source of this cookie is going to be an image called, which we just named, cookie.png, which you can now see it. Whoops, let's go back here. You can now see it in this drop down. Here it is because I've put it in the folder, right? So cookie PNG is right there. It's ready to go. Now let's set a size because I don't know how big that one is off the internet. So let's set a size and make it a width of 200 pixels. And what else do I want to add? Oh, we want to have this on click statement. So let's copy that. Right click, cut. Let's put it there, paste. Right, so now I've got my on click, which will run my function, and then I can close that bracket. Now, I don't need this button anymore. I'm going to delete this button. So instead of the button, now we're going to have an image. And when you click on the image, that'll count as the counter for our program. So, and if I do a preview right now, let's have a little preview and see if this works. There we go, there's my game. So if I click start and then start clicking on this cookie, that should do my counts, right? But it's no good clicking on a cookie that's sitting there and not moving. And look at even my mouse, it doesn't even change to say this is where you're going to click. So we need to add some things, and we're nowhere near finished yet, but we're well on our way. First thing is, I've given this image an ID and I've called it cookie. Now I gave it an ID because I'm going to add some style to this cookie. In fact, what I'm going to do is I want to change it so that the mouse, the pointer, changes when it goes over the cookie. So this is where we get into a bit of CSS. In fact, this is not CSS, this is just styling because we're doing it within the file. It's not a cascading style sheet, it's just style in here. Okay, so let's do some style in here. And this is inside the head. We're doing a style set of tags, and we're going to say, because we're using an ID, we use a hash to say, go and find the ID. And the ID you're going to look for is cookie. And let's give it some curly brackets. And then let's say, what do we want to happen? I want the cursor to change to a pointer. Okay, and let's put a semicolon. All right, so that's the first thing I want to change. Second thing I want to change is I want that transition from a cursor to a pointer. I want it to happen pretty quickly, right? So let's go transform, and let's do it in 0.1 of a second. So it's super fast. As soon as you move the mouse over the top of that cookie, it should change to a pointer instantly, like quicker than you can see it change, right? It should instantly change to a pointer. So that's the first bit. So that's a little bit of style that I've done that'll impact only this image, right? Because we're using the cookie there. So the cookie's the style we're changing there. So that's the first bit. Now, let's add, what else do we want to add? We want to have the cookie. If I click on the cookie, I want it to get a little bit smaller when I click on it. So it looks like it's moving in and out, like you click it and you're pushing it away and then it comes back, and then you push it away and it comes back. So I want to change the way that it actually looks, the way the cookie looks. I want to make it actually smaller. But I only want that to happen once the game's running. So let's go down here into our functions. Let's go into our function here that's the add click, because remember the cookie works on the add click. Now, if the game's running, I want that to stay the same. I want that to stay the same. I want to change the cookie. So I'm just going to put this in here. I'm going to leave a space just so that you can see. In the document, we want to get element by ID. Get element by ID, which is that one, right? And the ID that we're going to be using this time is cookie. Okay, so that's the element that we're going to get. And this time we want to do a style change. We want to transform the image, style dot transform, and we're going to say we want to change that image. And what we want it to change to is we want to scale it. We want to make it a little bit smaller. So let's scale it by 0.9. So it's 90% of what it currently is, right? It'll just be a little bit smaller. So first of all, I've spelt transform wrong. Okay, transform. So there we go. So we've got go to the document, get the element that has the ID of cookie, which is our image up here. You want to change the style, and we want to transform that. And we want to transform that by scaling it down 90%. Now, here's the problem. We've just scaled it down 90%. I want it to pop back out again, right? I don't want it to stay at 90%. I want it to get big again after a certain amount of time. So how are we going to do that? Still inside this if statement. So we're still inside this if statement. Let's go set timeout in bracket function. Now this is similar to what we did earlier in the program. We don't need to call this function. We just want this function to run automatically. So I'm not giving it a name. I'm not telling it call this function. I'm just saying this function is going to run automatically by itself. And in fact, what it's going to do is we're going to change that image. We're going to use pretty much exactly that line. I'm just going to put this in here. I'll just show you what this does so that you guys can understand. Right, so I want it to go to the document, get the element that has the cookie. I want to change the style. I want to transform it, and I want to transform it back to 100%. So I'm changing that back to a 1, right? So when you click it, it'll go down to 90%. After a certain amount of time, this is going to be a timeout function. After a certain amount of time, it will pop back out to being 100%. Now, obviously, we need to tell it what time. How long are we going to do it? And let's do it as 100 milliseconds, right? So after 100 milliseconds, it should pop back out to being full size again. Should pop back out to being 100%. Okay, so that's it. That should really be about it for the whole cookie function. All I've done is I've substituted the button with a cookie. I've given the cursor will change style when it goes over the cookie, and when you click on it, the cookie will get smaller, and then after 100 milliseconds, the cookie will pop back out and get bigger again, right? So a tenth of a second, the cookie should pop back out and get big again, okay? So let's save that. Let's go File, Save. Now, again, if I try and run it in here, it's not going to work because it's going to want me to enter the name, and this doesn't want me to enter the name, right? So I'm going to run it over here from my folder. Let's go to my folder, Documents. In fact, I'll do it on the screen here so you can see. Phoenix, cookie version 4. Run it here. There we go. Now I'm going to hit Start. Give me my name. Now, as soon as I hit OK, I'm going to rush over and start clicking this cookie. And there we go, the cookie's going in and out. You can see it going in and out. The graphic is working. Have a look at my mouse pointer. It's now a triangle. It's now a pointer instead of, let's have a look. Did that work? Oh, okay. I got 53. 53 is my score. Let's just do this again slowly. Start. Let's call it John. Let's go OK. Now, my pointer's not necessarily changing, which is interesting. Okay. You got 25. Okay, close. So anyway, that's the main part of the function. It seems to be working. Let's just have a quick look. Oh, there we go. The pointer changed just then. Ooh, that was interesting. The pointer changed when I went over the image. It changed to a hand, but then it changed back again. So something's overriding it. So I'm going to have a quick look at that. Now, before I go on and just change that, there's something else I want to change. This is called a click counter game. There are games out there that are cookie counters, right? There's games that's already available that you can go out and click the cookies and all that sort of stuff. I want to change it. I want it to be unique. So I'm going to get a different image and I'm going to put a different image in here. But I'm going to do it, there's two different ways we could do this, right? So the first thing I could do is get a different image and I could just call it cookie.png. That's all I would need to do is change it and call it cookie.png. Even if it was a picture of a car or something else, we could change it just by saying cookie.png. But what we probably would be the right thing to do is whatever we call this, or we're going to call our game, we would then change the ID here. You'd have to change the style here, and then down here you'd have to change the element by ID. We could do that. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it the quick way. I'm just going to get a different image. I'm going to put it in there, and we'll call it PNG. And I also want to have a quick look as to why my pointer didn't change so much. I'm going to have a quick look at that as well. I've just paused the video and I've come back here and I had to look up why this cursor wasn't working on here, because not everyone is, you're not expected to know every single thing all the time. Sometimes you need to go and look things up and make some changes. So I found out that if I put this line in here, display inline block, then this should make my cursor change. It'll change to a hand and it should force it to stay a hand while we're clicking. All right, so that's the first change that I'm just going to make in here. Display in my style section inline block. The second thing I did is I went and got a new image. It's called chewy.png. Now, instead of changing all of these cookies all the way through to Chewy, which would be the right thing to do, it's going to take time, but for the video we don't need to do that. All I'm going to do is change the name of the image that's being used. So I'm just going to put Chewy in here. And that should change my entire program, right? So instead of clicking cookies, I'm going to be clicking Chewies. And then I could, instead of calling this click counter game, I could call this Chewy click counter game. Chewy click counter game, right? So I'm going to save that. Just going to go File, Save. I'm still saving this under version 4 because I'm just changing the image. Right, now I'm going to go and get my Phoenix code folder, which you guys have seen. Here's my Chewy image in there. Is a PNG. Double click my version 4 and here's my version 4 right here. Chewy click counter game, and it's a little Chewbacca doll here. All right, so it's a Chewy click counter. If I hit start game, my name, I'm going to call myself Chewy. Right, my name's going to be Chewy. Okay. Now Chewy's going in and out. It's clicking. I'm getting as many as I possibly can. Changing over to my touchpad because the touchpad's quicker. And I got 59 clicks, so now I'm the highest score in here, and I hit OK. Okay, so the game's working, everything looks great, I'm pretty pleased with that. One of the things is the pointer. When you move the pointer over, sometimes you see it flash and become the hand, and other times you don't. Other times it stays the pointer. Now that's because the screen is redrawing over and over again so many times with the image going in and out and in and out. It's trying to do the cursor, but it's not perfect at this stage, it's not perfect. One thing you can do is you can tell it that that's important, right? So you actually put the word important in there, and that'll sort of prioritize that cursor changes, but it's not a perfect situation yet. But for the purpose of this game, I love it. It's all working. Everything seems to be great. Now, the only next step that you would make, the only other thing that you would change onto this would be to add a database in the back end. Now, adding a database, it's a lot bigger process. You can watch the other videos that I've created. Essentially, what you would be doing is using a SQL database to store the two bits of information, the high score and the high name. You'd only need a single table to score those two bits of information. The issue would be that you'd need to be querying the database to see what the highest score is every time the page loads, bring the highest score up onto the page instead of having 0 and nobody, and then every time the highest score is beaten, you would save back to the database. It's not a massive job. It's a pretty small job, but it would take another 20 minutes of this video to explain that. You're better off going to the website IBComputerScience.it and looking at how to link a website to a database. There's 3 videos already there. It's under the database section, under the SQL section, and it's also under the web design section as well. So it's there twice so that you can find it. It's connecting a website to a database, and you could just apply those skills to this video. So that's it. That's the end. It's a good little game, pretty easy to make, and what is it? It's less than 85 lines of HTML and JavaScript. So it's a nice little game there that you could make and compete with your friends.